So I went to community college for 2 years. I went to Harper College because I did not know what I wanted to do. And originally I thought I was going to be a teacher. And then I was like, no, I'm going to be a therapist. And I'm like, maybe I'm going to go into sports. So I did an internship with the Chicago Bandits. It's a professional softball team out here in Rosemont, Illinois. And for the championship series, I got to work with ESPN. And then I got to like sit in the media truck and I'm like, oh my gosh, why have I never thought about working in media? And then a few months later, like went by and I was watching the CMAs and I looked at my mom. I go, Mom, it would be so cool to work for US 99 or like some type of radio station. And she's like, well, what's stopping you? And I go, I don't know. I never really thought about it. And so then I remember that night, I literally emailed like everyone at Entercom, which now Odyssey. And I was like, hey, are you guys by any chance hiring? Like, I'm just gonna give it a try. The next morning I got responses and they're like, yeah, we're hiring for promotions. Fill out the application, we'll give you a call. So I filled out the application, then I went in for an interview, and then I ended up getting the job. And, like a few weeks later, I started and I had my first events, and then I got to go to the studio, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is exactly what I want to do. Why no one told me about this sooner, I don't know. But I'm like, you just know when you like find something like what you're so passionate about. And my whole life, it was softball. I was a college athlete and I still will have a passion for softball. But now that I'm older and adulting, it's my career. And when I walked into the studio, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. I love to talk, as you can tell, if you haven't already. I love music and I'm a people person. And so the more I got to engage with like the on-air personalities, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly what I want to do. And then that motivated me to start my own radio show my senior year of college. And I actually stopped playing softball for radio. So I played softball 17 years of my life. Oh, wow. And I was like, do I stop this? And I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm in love with radio. Like I can't cheat on radio for softball. Like I just can't do that. So, and it's been
so was this through, so the community college, did they have like a broadcasting program and this is where you did that?
That's a great question. So I went to Harper College for 2 years and then I transferred to a 4-year school, Elmhurst College, where I got my bachelor's degree in communications. And then that's where I started my radio show.
Was it already called Motivation with Hannah B, or did it kind of
evolve? I did like my first 2 radio shows. I'm like, all right, this needs some type of name. Like I'm doing a show on a Monday and then I'm like, Monday Motivation with Hannah B. I'm like, that would be perfect because one, I've always been like that motivational type of person. And then I'm like, why not just give myself a brand while I'm at it? Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And it's shockingly, like I was very shocked when I got the response from people. I was just like, okay, it's going to be my mom and dad and sister listening. But I got so much support from the radio fam, like literally people from Entercom and iHeart and Alpha and Town Square and my faculty at Elmhurst. Like they had my back because radio isn't really a big thing at Elmhurst, but everyone knew me as like the radio girl. Like they'd pass by to go to the Roost, which is like the cafeteria, and then they'd all be knocking on the window, even though it's like a soundproof window. So I never heard anyone. But, it was just so cool. And I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
And I just had this spark. And that's what I knew that's what I wanted to do.
So then at US 99, when did that end? Because it was out like a part-time gig. Like how did that end?
So COVID. So I started there in June of 2019 and then March of 2020. So right when like everyone got laid off is when it happened. It was like right before St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. And it was because of that, they weren't having events and everything.
Yeah, there was no events. And that's when there was like the big cut, like all around, people were losing their jobs. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I hope that doesn't happen to me. Like this is my life. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm in a relationship with radio. And then when we all got laid off, I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I gonna do?
So then what made you want to take your podcast? So when you were done in college, what made you wanted to take the podcast then to continue doing it?
So Monday Motivation with Hannah B was originally my college radio show. And then when my senior year was cut short, was virtual, because it was in the middle of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I don't want to stop doing my show, because then they changed everyone to all virtual in like May. And I'm like, okay, I lost my job. My senior year is gone. And now I can't even do my radio show. So this is great. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to still do it. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm like, I'm going to give it a try. Let's see who even listens. So literally, it was literally like, good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. I was
you did it on your phone.
Recording the first. Do not listen to the first 4 episodes. I can't believe I still have them up there. Sound quality is terrible. I was using like iMovie to edit. Because I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yep.
And then I did a lot of my research, and I went to Camp Broadcast with Sam Alex, and then I got Adobe Audition downloaded, taught myself that throughout the entire pandemic. And then I ended up getting my little home studio, Rodecaster Pro, Rode mic, and now I have 38 episodes out.
I didn't realize that was all done within the pandemic.
Oh yeah, so this was all the pandemic. Like, I feel like my life would be so different, and it's crazy because I'm like, if the pandemic didn't happen, would I have set this home studio up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If the pandemic wouldn't have happened, would I really have kept going with Monday Motivation with Hannah B when I graduated?
Right.
Because when I graduated, if it would have been like on campus, I can't imagine me trying to find a job and then trying to maintain. Well, I probably would have done that, because I'm doing like 5 things at once right now. But
I think that's why I've been so impressed by you, because you're just so young and just like, figuring it out. I mean,
no, my parents, my family's like, they're my biggest support system.
That's
seriously.
awesome.
They really are. I still live at home, but it's okay once I, make a little bit more, or not even more money. Once I figure out where I'm going to be, and I move out, but
exactly,
I'm happy at home.
Take advantage of it, and especially like in this economy. I mean, I'm like, man, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I was just saying it's really expensive to live in Denver too, So I was saying I was like, when you date, when your lease is up, you might as well move within each other, because it only makes sense to save that money.
Literally, it's expensive, especially like moving to the city. I'm like, I'd love to move to the city.
Oh my God.
Apartments, girl.
They're probably so expensive, aren't they?
Oh, yes. Yeah, but in my bed, I have the Radio Fam stickers. I have like half the store. Your posts and your humor, it keeps us going. When the Radio Fam followed me, I fangirl. I literally fangirl. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe they followed me.
That's funny.
I'm like, they have like so many followers. They're following me, a college student. What?
Yeah, I was actually surprised though that I wasn't following you before. Like once I was actually on your page and looking around, based on your content, I was like, wow, I'm surprised I hadn't run into you before, just based on the stuff you're already posting and the people that I typically follow. So I was like, oh, a new one, I got a new fan here. And then it was cool how it kind of evolved. And I think from that, we kind of kept in touch. And then I reached out to you to do the free for all thing, because
was so fun.
Yeah. And that was just like a random, because I saw what Sean was doing. And then he'd have radio people on every now and then. And I was like, that'd be fun to like incorporate the two if he would be down for it. And he was. And then that's why I was like, okay, I know she's got a podcast. So I was specifically targeting people that were like doing something either on video or podcasting, something outside of just a station or whatever. And then, to do that, it was so fun that month when we were doing that with people and, kind of grew the network a little bigger there. Cause he's kind of got his free for all fam. Then I have the radio fam, and they kind of interject there. And then, come to find out that you Kira or whatever, and are virtual BFF,
Yes, we haven't met each other, but we're virtual BFFs.
So I was like, oh my gosh, how cool. And then and then actually going to morning show boot camp. So it was fun, being so excited to meet you and then actually getting to meet you. And then, I wasn't actually at the, most of the panels. I just came to the end. But then to have you making a name for yourself just by like questions that you're asking out there and who you're talking to. And I'm like, see, exactly. Like it's the people that just like it wasn't like, it made me proud, but it like also wasn't surprising either. I was like, well, of course she's doing that. Like you're going out and, like the little card that you were giving out with like your, like your logo on it and like putting the bracelets on people, that you have. And like, it's that type of shit that stands out. And it's just, like I said, when there's people that have just been in the business for years that still don't quite get that, I think, especially as people that have a little bit of that promotions and marketing brains behind us, I think really have that advantage to pushing our brands, so for somebody like you that wants to be on the air, really has that. So like,
same with you, girl, your little goodie bags. Oh my gosh, they were a big hit. I mean, literally everyone knew you with the little teal bags, the adorable pin. I have that right up there actually. The stickers, the You Look Great stickers, the Radio Fam, and then I know you partnered with Sean. Like that was a big hit.
Back to like what you were doing out there. Shit, right before we got on here, who am I seeing all over social media on All Access is you. Like because people are noticing Hannah, you know what I mean? And then like when right after boot camp, intern John, something he tagged you with his bracelet on in the plane.
Yes.
I saw that, and that's like big. Like he's a big deal.
I know. I know. I think I commented, and then he commented back. I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm like that like younger soul, but I'm like, actually I'm an old soul in a young body, but I literally was like, oh my God, they responded, and like it's the coolest thing ever to me because those are my role models, those are my mentors. Even like I know them because I follow them, but like when he's like, I'm wearing your bracelet, and I was like, oh my gosh, like thank you.
Right. I thought that was so cool. And like I almost messaged you or whatever, like, oh my God, is her John give you a shout out? How cool.
I know. Oh my God. I was literally freaking out. I was like, thank you. Thank you.
And what I'm learning is a lot of radio people too, because somebody posted the other day in a Facebook group, something about like sometimes feeling that they're not part of like the radio, like popular kids, and I think to a degree, any group of people, they're just going to happen naturally. Like people are going to be friend, kind of get clicky or whatever. But I've also learned though that a lot of the people, even the ones that seem like the really popular and like really confident ones, are also like pretty just as like insecure as like a lot of the ones that maybe aren't. And I learned that a lot of like doing this podcast and talking to people, and like there's a lot of people that like fangirl each other but like don't want to reach out, and I'm the one in the middle that I learned that, and I'm like,
and you're like,
oh, you should talk to
exactly. And I think that's what is so important in this industry, is having that that mentor, that role model. And I found that in everyone at Morning Show Boot Camp, at all the Women on Air conferences or Women in Radio seminars that I've been to. Like that's how I met Charisse. Like I met Charisse at the Woman in Radio conference, and we had a phone call like a month after, just kind of to like, we wanted to talk about my goals and like what
was it the digital one that you met her at, that like digital, or you went to the person one?
It was the virtual one. It was the all virtual. I think it was like in March. I think it was the Woman on Air. No, it was Woman in Radio.
Women in Radio. Yeah. Because she was a panelist, right?
Yes. And so I reached out to her and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I loved everything you had to say. Like I'd love to pick your brain. And so we had a phone call, and then we happened to meet in person at Morning Show Boot Camp.
Oh.
And then like a few days later, she sent me that email and she's like, hey, like I would love to feature you. You'd be great at this. She's like, let me know your thoughts. And I opened that up and I was like, me? Like, what? And I was looking through it, and it was just a bunch of females that are like so successful in this industry that I look up to, like Riley Couture, Holly O'Connor, like there's Dana Cortez. There's so many people on there. And I'm like, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. She's like, I would love to have you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was so excited. I was at work and I was like, oh my gosh.
See, and that's a perfect example of why when I say what you're doing is correct, you're on the right path, because you're right. You're looking at yourself like, wait, I'm up next to these people. Like,
I
yeah,
know. And
because you're
that's what
doing
I
the right
thought.
thing.
I was like scrolling through and I'm like, and then when she uploaded it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this real? And then I woke up and there were like people that, sent me emails today, text messages, and they're like, congrats on this. Like, this is huge. And I'm like, oh my God, like people saw the article. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I didn't realize, like, because I didn't post anything about it. But this morning I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, like people must get emails or, like the a subscription. But
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away, like the amount of support that I've gotten, not just the past 24 hours, but the past 2 years in this industry.
Like all the, all these connections between all the different stuff you're doing too. And I wish I would have been better about that when I was younger, but like, that's also why, again, a big part of Radio Fam is helping people that are your age and stuff
Yes.
like
And
that
that's,
need
I
that to
remember
say
when,
you're doing the right thing or not,
no, but Radio Fam literally helped me make those connections because low key, when I found your page, I went through like the followers and I just started following a bunch of people.
That's what
And
I
then
hope
when you
people do.
posted the Meet the Fam, like that's where I gained like a lot of followers.
Oh, did you get a bunch
And
from
then
that?
it's like, and then you read the comments and you're like, oh, who's this? And like, oh, let me follow you. And then like you just start to make all those connections
Yeah.
because of Radio Fam. Like, what would I do without Radio Fam?
I love that.
The comments and the engagement is key. Like, that's what I've learned. Like, I will always find time in my day to respond to like each individual comment on my Instagram and Facebook. Like, I don't know why. Like, I just feel like that's important to me because I appreciate you commenting, one. And two, like sometimes I like to ask a question back. So that kind of keeps the listener engaged.
Yep. And the algorithm, it all just ties into that. And anybody that I've brought on this podcast that has been like, that has grown their social media and done the same thing all says that too. Like intern John, that was a big one about his, he's has a big social media following and big podcast following. And that was the thing. He's like, I respond to every single comment, like them. And that's a big part of it too. Like when I was trying to grow, because I don't think a lot of radio stations do this well too. So that's why I think, again, the personal brands are going to be the ones that win. People are going to connect with Hannah B more than they're going to connect with the radio station, because, not a lot, like I would try to do that and try to connect with people, by actually like having conversations. I mean, even like really everything that I do through the Radio Fam is really how I would run a radio station page also. It's just making that, some like I see when somebody today posted that they're going in for heart surgery, so like it resonates with me because I know that person who has followed me for a long time, so I comment on it, a couple hearts or whatever. And like, it's like, when people like, I have cried so many times over people that have no idea I exist because they'll tag me in like these goodbye videos, like when they get like they'll move on to a different station or they get fired or something like that, or they have like a long like post, and it'll be like so like emotional. I'm like, oh my God, they don't even know me. Because it's like so, like heartfelt. Actually, Strawberry was one of those people. He posted this when he was going to Seattle, this really emotional video leaving the station he was at. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like the high, like when I had posted it at the time, it was like the highest engaged video. Like people just like really like it resonated with people. And so it's really, so again, even just doing that, your audience then is going to follow you then. So when you do get that right on air job, even that little crew that you've been working on now, they're going to go here. And it's like, the more they're still connecting with Hannah, they're just going to keep following, keep building where you go,
And it's crazy you bring that up because this morning I got this email and I was like, who is this? And it was an email, like someone emailed me through my website. And they were like, hey, Hannah, like, I just wanted to reach out and say that my girlfriend and I absolutely love your podcast. Like, we've been listening for a really long time and like, it's really helped us stay calm and relaxed. And we're just wishing you the best of luck. And we're really looking forward to the rest of your episodes. And I was like, okay, that literally made my entire day. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're wondering who's listening. And like, I can see the analytics, but I'm like, okay, like, I do have some listeners. I have my family and friends that'll always have my back, my Radio Fam. But I'm like, I want to know like who actually like I don't know that's listening.
Yeah.
I immediately responded. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for listening. That one message makes your day because you really are wondering who the heck is listening to this?
Oh
Is
my,
anyone listening?
it's so true.
It was probably like 9 a.m. and I saw that message. I was like, who is this?
That's so cool. I love that. And that's kind of what I wanted to highlight in your episode here is that like
Yay.
you're kind of doing how you're doing the thing. You know what I mean?
I'm extremely grateful for is I honestly don't think I would be where I am today without the support of people in this industry. And I genuinely mean that. I mean, from my first job at Odyssey, Entercom Odyssey, those people have had my back since day one and they will always have my back. Because sometimes you feel lost. You're like, am I doing the right thing? Like what could I be doing more of? What am I doing? What could I be doing differently?
Yeah.
But to know, like, to get those messages when you texted me that message after morning show boot camp, hey, like, I just wanted to say I'm so proud of you. Like, it was the sweetest message like ever. Like I was sitting outside and I read it to my mom and I'm like, Mom, Marie is just the sweetest, genuine soul there is.
Well, we'll obviously keep in touch, you know what I mean, since we're friends now. Yeah.
But girl, we are friends for life. Like you're stuck with me for life.
Right? You too.